Let me talk about heroes. It is one of the most common words in a writer's vocabulary, and it is one of the least understood. We reach for it constantly, yet we rarely stop to define it. That vagueness causes real trouble in your craft, because underneath that single word are three separate qualities, and a character can carry any combination of them. Let's break those three apart. The first is structural role. The hero is the figure whose choices generate the plot. They are the one the story organizes itself around. This is a position in the story's machinery. It is not a judgment of their character. The second quality is moral standing. The hero is the one the reader is meant to root for. Their values are what the story treats as worth defending. This is what most readers mean when they say the word, and it is entirely separate from structural role. The third quality is mythic pattern. The hero answers a call, is tested, and returns changed. This is a shape a story can follow. It is not a trait a character possesses. Here is why this matters. A single character can score high on one of these and low on another. Simply naming which one you are working on solves most of the confusion around the word hero. And there is one distinction worth holding onto from the very start. Not every protagonist is a hero. A protagonist is simply the one the story follows. Heroism is something a protagonist may or may not carry. Keeping these two terms separate protects the sharpness of both. So why does fiction need heroes at all? The pull comes from two different directions, and they do not always point the same way. The first is the human need. A hero gives readers a model for how to act under pressure. It gives them a safe way to sit with fear, loss, or powerlessness without facing it directly. Stories about heroes let readers rehearse courage before life ever asks for it. The second is the story's own need. Fiction requires an engine. It needs a figure whose decisions cause the next thing to happen. Without that agent, events simply occur rather than build. A story would need this kind of figure even in a culture with no interest in heroism at all. It needs one purely to have somewhere to put its causality. And here is the tension. These two needs can pull apart. A character can drive the plot perfectly while offering the reader nothing to aspire to. Holding both needs in mind keeps a character from feeling mechanical on one side, or hollow on the other. Now let's talk about arcs. Many writers assume that every hero must follow the hero's journey. The call, the trials, and the transformed return. But that is only one shape a hero story can take. A writer who assumes it is the only shape will force growth onto a character better served by something else entirely. So let's look at 5 arcs beyond that familiar path. The first is the flat arc. Here, the hero already holds the truth the story needs. They do not change. The world around them does, because their steadiness is what moves everyone else. The second is the fall arc. The hero begins admirable and is worn down or broken by events. The shape runs downward instead of up. The third is the testing arc. The hero does not transform. Escalating pressure simply proves, over and over, who they already were. The fourth is the disillusionment arc. The hero starts with a belief the story dismantles, piece by piece. They end wiser and sadder, not lesser. The fifth is the restoration arc. The hero is not chasing something new. They are trying to recover something already lost. A home, a person, or an earlier version of themselves. Notice what all of these have in common. A hero story only needs a through line of pressure and revelation. Transformation is one option among several, not a requirement. You are free to choose the shape that fits the character, rather than the shape that is simply most familiar. Now, let's get specific. Let's walk through 10 distinct hero types. First, the Byronic hero. Brooding, morally ambiguous, brilliant, and self-destructive. Alienated from society by choice or by wound. They are compelling because of their contradictions, not despite them. They draw sympathy through charisma and suffering rather than virtue. Second, the reluctant hero. They do not want the role. They are pulled in by circumstance or obligation. The tension comes from resistance, giving way to acceptance. The hallmark is a visible refusal early on, and a story that tests whether refusal is even possible. Third, the spontaneous hero. They act before thinking. They are defined by the instinctive choice in the moment, not by a developed arc. They are often a side character, but can anchor a whole story if the plot keeps generating snap decision moments. Fourth, the heroic leader. Their heroism is expressed through responsibility for others, not personal risk alone. Their choices are weighed against a group's welfare. Their internal conflict is about the cost of command, not personal danger. Fifth, the lone wolf hero. Self-sufficient, distrustful of institutions, operating outside normal structures. Unlike the Byronic hero, this isolation is tactical or philosophical, not primarily a wound. Sixth, the vigilante hero. They operate outside or against the law to enforce their own sense of justice. That deliberate break from sanctioned authority creates a built-in moral tension the story must keep addressing. Seventh, the everyman hero. An ordinary, unremarkable person thrust into extraordinary circumstance. Their heroism is legible because they are relatable, not despite it. Eighth, the chosen one. Their heroism is assigned by prophecy, bloodline, or external designation. It is not earned through action. The central tension is proving worthy of a role already given. Ninth, the tragic hero. They possess a defining flaw that both enables their heroism and guarantees their downfall. That flaw is baked in from the start, not acquired. And 10th, the guardian hero. Their heroism is defined entirely by protection of a specific person or place. Their motivation is narrow and fixed rather than evolving. Now, here is a crucial principle for making these types work. The failure should stem from the same trait that makes the hero type work. And the rise should require the hero to bend that trait, not discard it. This keeps the character consistent, instead of the story handing them an unrelated lesson. Let's see how that plays out. The Byronic hero fails through self-sabotage, the very trait that makes them magnetic. They rise through a moment of chosen vulnerability they had been avoiding all along. The reluctant hero fails by retreating or trying to hand the role back. They rise through a second, harder acceptance, without illusions this time. The spontaneous hero fails when the instinct that usually saves them backfires. They rise by learning, briefly, to pause. The heroic leader fails through a costly decision made for the group that goes wrong. They rise by rebuilding trust, their own and others. The lone wolf fails because they refused help when they needed it. They rise through a reluctant admission that isolation was the flaw. The vigilante hero fails when outside-the-law methods cause real harm. They rise by recommitting to their code with clearer eyes. The everyman hero fails through simple overmatch. They rise by finding an unremarkable but real resource, not by suddenly becoming extraordinary. The chosen one fails by leaning on the designation instead of earning it. They rise through the first real self-directed choice. The tragic hero's fall is usually severe or permanent. If there is a rise, it is moral rather than practical, clarity without survival. The guardian hero fails when the protected person or place is harmed despite their vigilance. They rise by redefining what protection means. Do you see the pattern here? Each hero type's arc is a variation on how much the defining trait bends, and in which direction. Across all 10, the endpoint is a refined version of the starting trait, not its replacement. Failure reveals the trait's edge, and the arc finds where that edge can bend. For the Byronic hero, it is an arc of exposure, not correction. The wound is seen rather than healed. For the reluctant hero, it is an arc of deepening acceptance. Refusal moves through grudging participation to chosen ownership. For the spontaneous hero, it is an arc of calibration. The instinct stays intact and gains a single beat of judgment. For the heroic leader, it is an arc of earned authority. Leadership moves from default to deserved. For the lone wolf, it is an arc of controlled opening. One bond is allowed in, without erasing who they are. So here is what to carry away. Start by naming which quality you are building, structural, moral, or mythic. Then choose the arc that fits your character, not the one that feels safe. And when your hero fails, let it come from the same trait that made them a hero. Because the best heroes do not become someone new. They become a sharper version of who they always were.